Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilly. I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the pros and cons of changing your style. People who have followed my career, you've seen that I am constantly changing my style, perhaps most shockingly in my latest book, The Mighty Onion, in which, the front cover looks much more sort of child-oriented than what I've done in the past, but the real shockaroo is when you get inside and you see this style of art that I devised for the main character, Elliot Quigley, who is supposed to be a kid who's not very good at drawing, to deploy throughout the book. And now no one's ever seen me do drawings quite like this before. They are, you barely recognize them as drawings by Mark Crilly. This one, maybe a little more, has a touch of that Crilly style. But the truth is, I'm constantly changing styles, even within this one book. When I crumple up a piece of paper, it suddenly becomes photorealism. There's this character named Dirk Ziegenhagen who comes in late in the book, and his style is radically different yet again from all the styles that we have seen thus far in the book. So that's the topic today, the pros and cons of changing your style as an artist. I'm going to actually start with the cons. Maybe I should have said it's the cons and pros, but con number one. There is some truth to the idea that a jack of all trades is a master of none. So I thought I'd go ahead and start with that. It's a cliche, but it's famous for a reason, because it is reflective of reality. If you spend your entire life working at one trade or one skill, you will get better and better, and hopefully you will become a master of that one skill. If you keep changing again and again and again, you sort of deprive yourself of the opportunity to achieve mastery. And so, I don't know how much more I need to say about that. I think that's one of the reasons that became a famous saying, is maybe to sound a cautionary note to people who try to take on too many different things. Be aware of that you are missing out on the opportunity to become genuinely great at any one of them. So let's go ahead and move on to number two in the list of cons, advice against changing your style. Every time you change style, you become a novice all over again and are likely to make rookie mistakes, such as putting two A's at the beginning of the word again. Sorry about that, folks. I need a proofreader, clearly. But that's an extension of the first piece of advice. But I wanted to sort of focus on this idea of becoming a rookie over and over again. That is part and parcel of changing your style, and you run the risk of sometimes embarking on a style that you are not all that good at and never will be all that good at, and so you're making loads of mistakes over the course of the project. So that is definitely a drawback of taking on new styles. And I would say, if you do take on a radically new style, you better give yourself the time that it takes to become at least moderately proficient in it. Don't take on a whole new style and then just leap right into final art, because unless you're a prodigy genius, chances are your eyes are not trained enough to see the mistakes in that early phase. I should say that this drawing that I'm working on is actually based on an illustration that I did for my book Manga Art years ago, and I'm adding color to it so as to upload it to my Etsy, and that should be available for sale, maybe even later today after I make this video. Who knows? Many thanks to those of you who have supported me by going to my Etsy and getting stuff. It has been quite a good success, I gotta say, since I launched back in November. I'll put a link in the description, as always, for those of you who want to check out what I have for sale over there. Let's keep going, though, with the next one of these cons against changing your style. Most world-famous artists do work that is instantly recognizable. Without a single signature style, you don't have a brand, and you can't stand out in the marketplace. I think that actually may be the number one reason that a lot of people, artists, choose to have just one style, in addition to it maybe coming naturally to them, is a strategy there of like, how else am I going to become known as an artist unless I have this signature style that people look at and say, oh yeah, that's that thing by Crilly or whatever, because I don't really have a signature style, I don't think, because I keep changing it. I certainly am not one of these artists, like I always use as an example, Matt Groening from The Simpsons. That is absolutely instantly recognizable. You know a Simpsons drawing the second you see it. And, Matt Groening has done other comic strips over the years, but you can recognize that Matt Groening look. And it certainly helps, I think, for succeeding as an illustrator to have that brand, So, yeah, not much more to say about that. Let's move on to the cons. Number 4. Every time you change style, you risk alienating the audience who fell in love with the style you've abandoned. Okay, now this one cuts a little close to the bone for me, I suppose, because I'm kind of aware of a lot of my YouTube audience really enjoyed Brody's Ghost, for example, and they loved that style that I did on Brody's Ghost, and the truth is I've never done anything that looks quite like it since then. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those people were just like, Crilly, dude, what happened? Why don't you ever do the Brody's Ghost style again? That was the one style of yours that I really liked. And so there is that risk of alienating people, losing an audience. And that's certainly something to be considered. I'm going to talk a lot more about my reasons for changing styles in the sort of second part when we get to the pro side of things. But yeah, for now, we'll just sort of leave it at that. What artist wants to alienate their supporters? You would have to be a little crazy to do that. And so maybe I am a little bit crazy, as I have surely from the beginning of my career. I started with Akiko, and I left that style behind. I did Miki Falls. I left that style behind. I'm sure I have alienated a fair number of fans over the years by way of my strange style-changing behavior. Anyway, let's move on to the final of the cons. Number 5, people who keep changing their style may be seen as nothing more than talented mimics or opportunists who are fickle and don't really stand for anything. Pretty harsh words. Hard to believe that I wrote that, because I feel it sounds like I'm attacking myself. But I think it is true that that especially that idea of the talented mimic, someone who keeps changing your style or changing their style, it sort of makes them come across as someone who doesn't really stand for anything, and they just are putting on a new style of clothes, which they will toss off next week, and then they'll become somebody else, and I think there is that sort of feeling of, who are you? Do you even know? You keep changing from one thing to another, whereas the person who has that one style that they do over and over again, there's something authentic about that, right? It's sort of like this guy or gal, they know who they are. They know what they stand for, and they kind of almost couldn't abandon that style because they are so ruggedly authentic to what it is that they believe in. So yeah, I put that one last because in a way that is maybe the harshest reality of, I'm not saying it's true, but it is a perception for sure that people have of these artists who keep changing their styles. Now, before I move on to the next bit, which is going to be the pros, And spoiler alert, I actually came up with one more pro, so it's not completely fair, this sort of point counterpoint that I've created against myself here. But you're going to see 6 different pro factoids or whatever relating to that part of it. But before I do that, I want to go into time-lapse, kick it into time-lapse, bring back old man time-lapse. Oh, it's been too long. Thanks, Critty. And he's going to help me add more detail to this illustration. I thought I might add a little blue to the sky in the background. And then once I'm done with that, I will come back to get into the pros, the reasons why you might want to change your style. All right, well, we got enough done there. It is time to move on to the pros, the reasons you might want to change your style. Number 1, I put this up top because I think it's the primary thing for me. Different projects very often demand different styles. Applying one style to everything inevitably leads to mismatches between the two. That is to say, a style that doesn't fit the project that you're doing. So this kind of relates to me in the fact that I'm taking on different types of projects, and style for me is something that is adjusted so as to do justice to that project, to that idea. Brody's Ghost was a kind of a dark story. It involved a serial killer. It involved a lot of sort of vengeance type themes, and certainly I had never done such a serious story in terms of the plot up until that point, and so I created a sort of a serious looking style that would fit that. Now when it came time to do the drawing lesson, that was more sort of youth oriented. There was a lot of humor in it, almost like comedy in certain parts, and so yeah, I used a more cartoony style for that one, and that certainly holds true for in a pretty extreme way, The Mighty Onion, where part of the story required me to create a very messy looking drawing style that looked nothing like what I normally would do. But it's all in service of the story. That's just my approach, and that's why I put that right up top. Let's get to the pros, number 2. Trying different styles allows you to figure out which of them works best for you. So this kind of combines the two in a way. If you try a bunch of different styles one after another, that will or could allow you to discover the one style that comes most naturally to you. It can be part of the process of arriving at the one style. So that there's certainly an educational aspect for anyone who keeps changing styles. Each time you change, you're learning new techniques, you're learning new tricks of the trade, and it could be in service. So, you don't have to pick between these two. Change styles until you find the one you love, and then that becomes your signature brand, in that way. So this is maybe the compromise position there, but certainly a big part of the reason that I like changing styles is I like constantly learning new things, and that doesn't happen if you keep just hammering away at this one style that involves one medium, generally speaking. And if your style is uses colored pencils, you become a master of colored pencils, but not of anything else, because you've never had the chance to even try these other techniques. That kind of gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Let's go to number 3 here. Changing styles can reinvigorate you and help you get out of an artistic rut. For sure, this is another thing, another reason why I keep changing styles. Not so much that I feel I'm in a rut, but I don't ever want to be in danger of slipping into a rut. My first comic book, the Akiko series, or Akiko as I like to pronounce it, that went on for like 53 issues altogether. And if you compare all those issues, you can see me constantly changing styles within even the same comic book series, because I didn't want to start to get bored of my own work, and it did involve these same characters again and again. And so to me it became very important with each new story that I embarked on that used these same characters to slightly tweak the style and take on new challenges to keep myself excited. There's this famous David Bowie quote about, going out into the unfamiliar deep end of the pool and getting to that point where your feet just can't quite touch the bottom of the pool anymore. That's where you want to be. That's what Bowie said. That, and he's famously, referred to as a chameleon and thought of as a person who changes styles at the drop of a hat. Rest in peace, I should say, for David Bowie. But I think he's maybe the best case scenario of someone who was beloved and not regarded as a kind of soulless opportunist who just kept jumping on one style after another. So let's move on now to number 4. Changing styles allows you to reach new audiences, possibly a much larger audience than you've ever reached before. Again, this should be then, not then. Oh, get me a copy editor for these videos. My apologies. Anyway, that is a big part of why I keep changing styles. I must admit, I haven't had a huge hit with any of these various projects, and part of me thinks, well, if I, do this again in the same style, it doesn't seem very promising that I'm going to have a big hit, because I've already tried it and it wasn't a big hit. Not that I'm obsessed with having a big hit, but just I owe it to my family to try to have big success, and so I keep changing styles, thinking maybe this will be the one. Maybe this will be the style that really connects. This will be the project that really takes off and sells, and that, I have to admit, it's a big part of the dream for a freelancer, is achieving that big win, that sort of grand slam project. And that indeed is always in the cards for me, hoping, praying for one of these things to really be a huge success. And for me, that involves not repeating myself, always trying something new. Here we go, we're down to the last 2 of the pros. Number 5, being capable of working in lots of styles means you are more employable. You can take on a wider variety of projects. Now, this is where we almost become a little contradictory, because I was saying that the world-famous artists have this signature style, but it has to be said, if you're capable of doing lots of styles, that means you can say yes to lots of different projects. People who only work in one style inevitably are going to have to say, I'm sorry, I don't do that. I don't do that style. And then they shut themselves out of that category of work. So I think as you go down the ladder, in a way, of artists and creative people, you may find people like me who say, I can't afford to only work in one style. I need to work in as many styles as I can so as to take on as many jobs as I can. And so that becomes sort of just a reality of the marketplace almost, right? I've done illustrations or drawings that are portraits of somebody's children, right? Highly realistic. In which the goal is to produce a likeness of that child. And it has nothing to do with cartooniness or, some might say, almost draining myself of style so as to deliver this likeness that someone would look at and say, oh, that looks just like my son or daughter or whatever. Anyway, that I would have had to say no to that job if I were not capable of doing that type of a style. And now we come to the last one, which I hope will send this video off in kind fashion, and that is the pros number 6. If working in just one style doesn't come naturally to you, forcing yourself to do so will make your work repetitive and unfulfilling. I think that's the key thing for all of this is you gotta do what comes naturally to you. If you're the kind of artist who, it's natural for you to work in one style your whole life and perfect that and become the master of that one style, then that's where you should be. That's what you should be doing. If I forced myself to work in one style, even if it brought me great success, I would be miserable because that doesn't come naturally to me. I want to keep learning new things, trying new things, going out on that tightrope, and that comes naturally to me. That's the kind of artist I am. And I suppose that's the sort of compromise at the end of all of this, is for me to say, do what comes naturally to you. How else are you going to be happy as an artist if you're focusing on like strategy and working in a way day after day that doesn't keep you happy as an artist? Even if it brings you some measure of success, you're not going to be happy because you forced yourself to work against your own instincts. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of the video. Bear with me, I'm just going to grab my copy of The Mighty Onion to say thank you to anyone who has supported me in my latest stylistic change here by getting this book. I've put a link in the description. Many thanks to those of you who support me by ordering that book, or indeed any of my other books. But I do think it is time for me to lay down this pencil. Whoa! It's escaping! I'll just leave it there. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.